Oh, and we're.
You should.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're letting everyone into the meeting now. So if you could please mute yourself when you join. Welcome. We're happy to have you. We will just wait a few minutes to make sure that everyone gets into the meeting before we call it to order. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good to see some friendly faces. Welcome. So good evening, everyone. We will call to order the Affordable Housing and Homelessness Standing Committee for the City of Palm Springs. Today is Wednesday, June 30th. It's 5:34 p.m. Pursuant to executive orders, this meeting is being held by teleconference, by Zoom. So welcome, everyone. We are going to first go to the City of Palm Springs update, and then we will go to county update and service provider updates, and then we will go to public comment, and then we will do council member and staff comments. So that is the order of the agenda today. So welcome, everyone. My name is Christy Holstage. I'm the mayor for the City of Palm Springs. I'm joined here by Grace Garner. Grace, if you want to introduce yourself, council member for District 1.
Yeah, hi, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm the council member for District 1. I think this is my first official subcommittee meeting for the affordable housing and homelessness. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Grace. We are also joined if city staff wants to introduce yourself. So I'll start with Justin and then go to Captain Kovalev and then Jay Varada and Denise Goolsby.
Hi, good early evening, everyone. My name is Justin Clifton. Happy to serve as city manager here in Palm Springs.
Hi, everybody. This is Captain Mike Kovalev. I'm the operations captain here at the police department, overseeing our homeless outreach and the teams that work with the homeless every day.
Good afternoon, Jay Varada here, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Hi, good evening, afternoon. This is Denise Goolsby, Office of Neighborhoods Manager for the City of Palm Springs. Great to be here and to see everybody.
Thank you. Justin, are there other city staff who should introduce themselves at this time?
I do see Flynn. Flynn, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Flynn Fagg, Director of Development Services with the City of Palm Springs. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Flynn. Welcome. Sorry, your video was off, so I didn't see you there. And then we have Mitch Whitburn. You're also working on behalf and part of the city. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you very much. I'm also joined by my colleague Craig Edelman today. Mitch Whitburn, Senior Principal with LaSar Development Consultants. I head up the Homelessness Solutions team, and if it's all right, Mayor, I will ask Craig to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Craig Edelman, also Senior Principal with LaSar Development Consultants. Really excited to be with you this evening and working with the city, and I lead our housing team at LaSar Consultants, and we bring both housing and homelessness expertise on behalf of the city.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who from the city side who'd like to say hi and introduce themselves?
Hi, Officer Sandoval. You actually have a homeless outreach team here as well. So we'll be listening in and answering any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, officers. Thank you for being there.
Not a problem.
I saw Andrew T, so I was a little confused about
Right here.
the team for a second. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. I think that's important to explain and introduce all of the city officials and city staff who are present here today. Since we don't get to be in the same room with each other, you know who everyone is. So the first thing on our agenda is City of Palm Springs update. So we've asked city staff to go over affordable housing projects, the Homelessness Housing and Assistance Prevention Program, or HHAP, which is the 10 million statewide dollars that we received about a year ago, and then LaSar Homelessness and Housing Consulting Services. So I will go to the city manager to provide a city update.
Thank you, Mayor, and nice to see neighbors, at least by name, if not faces on the screen. I'm going to give a pretty high level update, and I think because there have been some recent events. Some of you might have questions or concerns that are specific to some of the more recent developments, but I'm going to pan out for a second, especially as a newcomer to the organization and community, and just try to set the stage a little bit. So obviously when we're dealing with homelessness especially, but affordable housing as well, we're really dealing with humanitarian issues. I think that goes without saying, but it's always worth repeating. I've seen some of it firsthand, especially in our homeless community. These are human beings, often really struggling with mental illness, addiction, other maladies that, I just take for granted sometimes that I get to go home and sleep in a nice warm bed in a cool house, and, a very different circumstance for me than for many. I also want to acknowledge that, especially in the area of homeless, we have significant secondary impacts, and those shouldn't be minimized either. We get a lot of calls from residents, people that feel scared sometimes when they go to commercial centers or businesses in places that are struggling to operate because of some of those impacts, families that can't use parks near areas where we have concentration of people for fear and real safety concerns. So there are really lots of issues here, all kind of commingled, and I think we're doing our best as the city and our partner providers to really try to walk a delicate line where we can address those issues. And of course, it's often said that the goal or the key outcome of ending homelessness is a home, right? So we're really focused both in the area of making housing more affordable and then addressing homelessness on outcomes, on achieving the ultimate goal with these programs. It is important to look individually at the kinds of tactics and the facilities and things like the location and things like that. But at the end of the day, we really want to measure ourselves against how we really resolve some of these issues. And I understand that in many instances, they're getting worse before they're getting better. The truth is, these are growing problems nationally. We're preoccupied certainly with things like what services are a little more perhaps enabling and which ones really have evidence of showing benefit to improving the problem and improving outcomes. So from a high level, some city actions that have taken place over the last while, the mayor mentioned $10 million in HAP funds. I want to take a moment to recognize that in that first distribution of those funds, we were the only city outside the really major California cities to get a distribution. So that was because of the hustle and hard work of the city council, lobbying, working hard to get $10 million. Some of that money, as Jay Varada will outline in a little more detail here in a second, went to 2 affordable housing projects, the first 2 really in around a decade. So we see evidence of things happening, but I also want to stress that the planning stage of those, the money stage of those projects is the early part and the easy part. It takes time, of course, to actually execute, but we continue to get good news from those housing partners that they're continuing to advance those projects. We've had other opportunities to dedicate funds with things like the old Ivy Motel project that the county was really spearheading, but the city was a partner. More than $3 million was committed, and through no fault of the city or county, unfortunately, that project couldn't continue. So sometimes when it seems like we're not making progress, it's because we had a good idea, didn't quite come to fruition, and now it's our job to recalibrate, to pivot, and to continue moving forward with new ideas. Some of the stuff that the city has done on the side, we've created a new position dedicated to housing and homeless issues. I don't know, we've had some housing resources in the organization before, but I believe this will be the first really dedicated to homeless issues. We're still trying to fill that position. We've been conducting interviews recently, but that's in the works. And we introduced just a moment ago some of our consultant service partners that are also bringing us expertise. So those are dollars that were allocated by the city council. And we're working hard on the administrative level to do something with those resources and really add capacity to take on these kinds of things. Most of you have probably read, we're working on establishing services out of the boxing club. So there's going to be a transition to some of the daytime drop-in services that have been provided at the current location where Well in the Desert is located. We are shifting those programs. Martha's Village and Kitchen is going to be helping us operating, I hope, under the premise that Well in the Desert will still be a partner in providing services. I certainly want to thank Well in the Desert and other partners for really having a long track record of trying to help do this work on the ground. But in the balance of some of those kind of humanitarian issues and the impacts of the community, it's also clear that we need to try to do some things differently to enhance service levels to really get better outcomes. So we're challenging ourselves and our partners to do that as we move forward, trying to establish those services. On a parallel track, we're looking at long-term housing first solutions. Again, ending homelessness, addressing housing. It all implicates having new housing opportunities for people. So glad to say that as we were preparing to issue some kind of an RFP and look at what we might do for those long-term housing services, the county is also receiving additional funds that I hope they'll speak about, and they intend to really take the lead on identifying a property and securing other necessary funds to build some sort of a central navigation type center. So those things are happening. We're comparing notes to make sure that our initiatives are combined and that we're getting more done together. Most recently, the city has played a role in convening partners. This meeting is evidence of that, inviting the community. We had another one just last week where it was an opportunity for the providers to really share notes, to compare service levels, identify gaps, work to fill those gaps. We're happy to continue to play that role. We're not doing the heavy lifting in that case, but providing the table, so to speak, where we convene and progress. So other than that, myself personally as city manager, I've been doing things like touring facilities. I went out to Martha's in Indio. I've met with partners at the boxing club. City council members and others have been out on tour with Supervisor Perez and other county officials. I've done ride-alongs with PD. Happy to see some of our homeless task force folks and law enforcement here. Really an eye-opening experience for me to see what we're dealing with firsthand. Again, back to that humanitarian issue and finding a better way to reduce the impacts and ultimately advance people from these dire circumstances into something better. So it takes a while. It's not easy to do overnight. We do understand some of this problem is worsening. We're here to listen and hear ideas about what else we might do. I want to turn it over to Jay to give a little more substance to some of those programs that I mentioned at a high level, and then we'll turn it over to some of the providers to tell us the good work they're doing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And Jay, before you go, if I can, I will facilitate this meeting. We have 54 people so far. So I think it'll be difficult to do it informally in a way that we can jump in and ask questions. But if you are able, you can use the chat and I will read those questions that you have and try to read some of those out loud for city staff to get them answered. So please do that. If you're unable or need accommodations and can't use the chat, you can raise your hand. But like I said, we will have a dedicated public comment time at the end if you actually have comments that you want to share with the city council, with the task force, and with everyone on this call. So with that, we will hand it over to Jay Varada, our Director of Economic Development. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. Just let me share my screen real quick. And if you could all just let me know that you can see that. Is that okay? Great, thank you. So I'm just going to give some quick updates on the housing projects and the funding status, and that'll be essentially this next segment. So why don't I go on and get started on that? One of the first projects is the Vista Sunrise 2 project. This is located on North Sunrise Way, just west of Vista Chino and south on Sunrise Way. It has 60 affordable studio units and including studio units and 1-bedroom units, with 29 of those dedicated to those who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. The project will be designed to Green Point rated standards. It will have a 1,600 square foot community building, with computer station and laptop educational software and internet access, a demonstration kitchen. The retention basin on the property will be used as a dog park, and residents will have access to desert aid projects, healthcare, and educational services. The city is committed $2.4 million in, $3.6 million in financial assistance to this project, 3.8 million, which includes $2 million in the Housing Homelessness Assistance Prevention Funds. That's the $10 million grant from the state. The county has contributed the land for this project, plus 35 project-based vouchers. And those cover the entire cost of the rent or offset the rent to a certain amount, depending on the income level for each of the individuals. And what's kind of exciting is that as this project moves forward, the process is typically applying for funding from various sources that provide funding, such as the county, such as the city. And this project has recently been awarded No Place Like Home funding from the state in the amount of $6.7 million. So we're excited to see that. This means they've built up a solid base of financial assistance and funding, and are now in the process of applying for tax credits from the state, which is typically the bulk of the financing for the project. So depending on how it goes with the tax credit financing, they expect to hear an answer by mid-August. And if they are awarded this round, they anticipate being under construction by February. One of the other projects funded with the HAP funds is the Aloe Palm Canyon project. This is located at the southwest corner of Stevens and Palm Canyon. The lead support provider will be the Riverside University Health System. Hold on a second, let me admit a few people into the meeting. The Desert AIDS Project will provide a part-time support case manager for the project. And as you can see, it is a 71 unit senior housing project with 25 of the units available and dedicated for formerly homeless seniors. The support case managers provide individualized, specialized case management services, including resident access services for healthcare, behavioral health, and oral health. The developer and West Hollywood Community Housing Corporation and Desert AIDS Project also provide resident services to all the tenants in the building, offering connections to job training and other educational services, social services, and help to build a sense of community amongst the population that will be living there. The city has committed $2.4 million in financial assistance to this project, which includes $2 million in HAP funds, again, part of the $10 million grant from the state. In addition to that, the city is contributing land valued at $1.4 million. The developer, however, is required to buy the second parcel on this site, which is approximately $900,000. In this case, the county is providing 25 project-based vouchers, and this project also has recently been awarded No Place Like Home funding in the amount of $6.4 million. So again, an exciting development. This project has received additional funding, positioning it to apply for tax credits in the upcoming round in September. The next project is the Monarch Apartments, and the developer is Community Housing Opportunities Corporation, or CHOC, as many people have come to know this project. As you can see, it is a 60-unit affordable housing project, but in this case, instead of just one bedroom and studios, this project is designed more for families. So it's got a mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and 3-bedroom units. And as you can see, there's the units are being provided at a variety of income levels up to 60% of the area median income. So this project includes a community building also, a water play park, a dog park, barbecue grills, and it's environmentally sensitive. It includes the use of energy efficient appliances, carport roof solar panels, water efficient plumbing fixtures, and drought tolerant landscaping. An electric vehicle charging station will also be included, which will help reduce the project's overall carbon footprint. For this project, the city has committed $1.8 million in financial assistance plus land valued at $840,000. The county has contributed $500,000 in home funds plus they've added 29 project-based vouchers. Again, these vouchers help the residents to cover the cost of living in the project and serve as a way that makes the project feasible for the developers, being able to ensure the income coming in from the residents. Now, also exciting, even more, I mentioned the 2 previous projects are now positioned to apply for tax credits, which typically make up the bulk of the financing for a project. The Monarch Apartments project here has already been awarded their tax credits. So they will be receiving or have received $20 million in tax credits, which are usually used to leverage bonds that help finance the project. And in this case, this project is anticipated to begin construction by October. So that's coming up. They're rushing to complete their construction drawings, submit them to the city, and pull permits and put shovels in the ground.
Thank you, Jay. Really quickly, there's a question, where will Monarch Apartments be? Could you answer that, please?
Yes, the Monarch Apartments will be located at the southeast corner of Indian Canyon and East San Rafael Drive. I don't know if you have a picture of that in your mind. It is, there's a few big empty lots, and that would just be just south of the Miralon project.
Thank you, Jay. And I assume these slides can be posted online to our city website for this task force so that people can access them.
Yes, they will
Thank
be,
you.
Mayor. Thank you. And to just kind of wrap up the discussion, we talk about the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Grant, the $10 million grant from the state. So I've put it on the screen, and I'm showing the original budget, the funds that have been allocated or are obligated, and the remaining balances. And you have to stick with me on this one because there's, you know, the funding today is always a moving target. And so I just want to emphasize that there's a lot of things happening that we think it's you know, important to think through our next steps before running in one direction too far. So keep in mind, this budget is meant to last through 2025. You'll see that $4 million has been allocated to the 2 permanent supportive housing projects I previously mentioned, the Vista Sunrise 2 and Aloe Palm Canyon. $700,000 is planned for administration, and that's for the new staffing that City Manager Clifton had mentioned. Also covers part of the cost for the consultants we have on board, our LaSAR team. And $800,000 of this amount must be used for homeless youth, and that's required by the state. So this is the approved budget by the state, and it really represents what the city was facing at the time when this budget was approved. But since that time, you know, we've had to deal with COVID-19, businesses shutting down, people losing their jobs, and consequently the federal government and the state government have allocated more resources to assist individuals in areas like rental assistance and rental protections. So as you can see, a portion of our budget here is allocated to rental assistance. And if we consider that the county has recently made $57 million available for rental assistance, and the state has recently made approximately $60 million available for rental assistance, and the governor has just signed AB 832 to cover 100% of the past due rent for income qualified tenants, maybe we can allocate this 1.2 million for rental assistance for another purpose. So again, that's the changing landscape we're dealing with. Also, in just the last couple of months, the county let us know that there is a very good chance they will have funds to construct a navigation center shelter combination. So a shelter and navigation center combined into one. But they would need assistance from the city to contribute operating subsidies for such a center. Right now, as you can see in the budget we have approved with the state, we have $0 for operating subsidies. Again, we did not know the opportunity to construct a navigation center or shelter would present itself, but it has. The world has changed. And for the city to provide assistance in that regard, we would have to move funds from other categories, request approval from the state for that move. And of course, that would take away funds from some of the other activities. So there are important decisions facing the community and the city council as we move forward with allocating the remaining funds. Another factor to consider is that the governor will most likely be making more funding available for Project Homekey. This is the program for conversion of hotels into permanent homes. Like the Ivy Palm, which City Manager Clifton mentioned, this project would have provided 75 permanent units in a relatively short time frame. And the city had already committed $3 million of the HAP funds to this project, but unfortunately, the court did not allow the purchase of the property by the county. So again, the questions that arise, and we would appreciate your help with this, is how the city should look at allocating the remaining $3.5 million. So, you know, should that go towards more permanent supportive housing, like the two projects being funded, which would be wonderful because that would provide a permanent housing solution for individuals. Should it go towards a navigation center and shelter, which would also be wonderful because it would provide a more immediate solution to the individuals suffering from homelessness? Should we keep our eyes open and watch for a Project Homekey opportunity, which would take a little time and we'd have to identify that opportunity and make it happen. But once that's identified, we would be able to move quickly, assuming the funding is made available by the county in the city of Palm Springs to provide new housing units to house homeless individuals. Or do we just leave the plan the way it is? You know, so there's a number of different things to consider. Again, all of your assistance in your discussion on this topic is appreciated. And Mayor, I'll leave this slide up for a little longer just in case there's questions, but that's the update.
Thank you, Justin and Jay. Are there any questions? So there are only a few in the chat. If you do have other questions, please put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will call on you here. I don't see any, so we can always go back if there are other questions, or we can get you those answers. I did post the link to this task force's website on the city website. So Jay, you can share information there and post the slides there, right? There's also some other graphics about the $10 million and answering community questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
So seeing no questions right now, we will go to the next item on the agenda, which is you were going to do a LaSar Homelessness and Housing Consulting Services update, or is that already completed?
No, that's not completed. Thank you for reminding me. You know, we were fortunate to get the affordable housing projects that we do have and are able to manage some of the homeless service contracts that we've had in the recent past. But the truth is there is a huge administrative task tied to tracking the grant funds, developing the development agreement, development and tracking, the affordability requirements and reporting requirements. So to help us meet those obligations, we did issue a request for proposals to solicit help from qualified firms. And we also wanted a firm that could help us plan strategies in the areas of homelessness and affordable housing. LaSar Development Consultants was selected, and we got them under contract in April. LaSAR has experience working with public agencies, municipal governments, continua of care, housing developers, and real estate financiers. They've some of their projects are the County of Santa Barbara Homeless Action Plan, Affordable Housing Action Plan for Napa County, a regional housing strategy for the Bay Area, strategic plan for the County of Riverside Continuum of Care. So they are familiar with our Riverside County situation. They've also worked with developing plans for 20 communities in Los Angeles and worked to train the state of California staff on affordable housing. So they're an established organization with several resources and good experience that we hope to tap into. In Palm Springs, we have them here to assist with planning and administering affordable housing and homeless projects and programs. LaSAR will be conducting searches for available apartment buildings and hotels that may be able to house homeless individuals. They're preparing or prepared to prepare a request for proposal and notice of funding availability, depending on what direction we go with the HHAP funds. And they will identify and apply for homeless and affordable housing funding for the city. So this will be a huge benefit and help to us. So Mitch, Craig, if you would like to add anything, I think it'd be okay to do so at this point.
Jay, thank you very much for a very kind introduction of the firm. And as Craig said, we're really excited to be working with the city of Palm Springs. We are, the Homelessness Solutions team is working with the County of Riverside as we speak, really, on a homeless action plan, which is phase 2 of our engagement with them. It is particularly rewarding to be working in communities like Palm Springs, in counties like Riverside, that are leaning into this issue in ways that Jay just described, the city manager described. I think you hit some of the stuff on the head, and you've got great opportunity with the HHAP money to really target in on some powerful interventions around homelessness. Be happy to talk a little bit more about that if anybody would like, but I don't want to ramble on too much. Craig, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, it's a really challenging time around housing and homelessness, as we all know. Palm Springs is experiencing a surge in demand. You've got record home prices. If you're a homeowner, that's probably good news. If you're not a homeowner and you're trying to live in Palm Springs, that's not necessarily good news. So the challenge is massive, and we know that the city and cities have limited capacity to address the scale of this challenge. But we can also we're excited about helping take positive action in that direction. So it's a really dynamic time for affordable housing. The federal infrastructure investment program that's being contemplated has some exciting possibilities, and we've seen more active aspirations in terms of housing policy at the federal government, certainly, than we've seen in probably a generation. And then perhaps even more so at the state level, we've got a lot going on. Jay mentioned the huge upsizing of the Homekey program. There's also a bunch of additional funding for housing and homelessness. I saw, let's see, Jenny Weissman asked in the chat about the governor's announced $12 billion. That's part of what we're here for, is to try and figure out how to get as much of that money into Palm Springs as we can to meet your needs. There's, and then we've got the RENA program and Housing Elements out now. And so looking for ways to tie in solutions around affordable housing production and policy with the housing element. The state just came out with its guidance on pro-housing designations for cities, which would put cities that are deemed pro-housing at an advantage for getting state funding. And all of this against a backdrop of costs being completely out of control, and in terms of the cost to produce housing, not just affordable housing, but all types of housing. So our challenges are real, but we feel like we're excited to be working with a city that is dedicated to taking action and bringing our expertise, not just on housing, but as Mitch mentioned, kind of our ability to operate at the intersection of housing and homelessness. So really great to be with you and looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the team, and it's good to introduce you to the community. And I know the city council the community has really said they want the city to do more and more of this work, to get more of this state and federal funding. So we appreciate your help in doing that. So I see that there's some questions in the chat, and there is answers in the chat. Again, if you need reasonable accommodations, please raise your hand. In the interest of time, I will go to the county update, and then if there's any remaining questions that can't be answered in the chat by city staff or county staff, we will bring them to this group. And there are closed captions, by the way, if you need to turn those on by Zoom. So next we will go to Riverside County for their homelessness services update. I think that is Greg Rodriguez.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi Greg.
Hi, thank you. And I wasn't planning on doing this PowerPoint, but I'm going to, and I'll skip over. This was done for the Palm Springs Hospitality Association, I believe just last week. So I'll go. So first of all, for those of you who don't know me, I know most of you on the call as I scroll through, I'm Greg Rodriguez. I'm with Supervisor Perez's office. I deal with all his housing, homelessness, and healthcare policy. Additionally, I'm under contract with Coachella Valley Association of Governments, or CVAG, to run the collaborative efforts. I've been doing that for 2 years now in the Valley for all of our cities to work together and our service providers in conjunction with the county services as well. Also from county staff, and he may do an update later, is Marcus Cannon, who's a rock star in our behavioral health department. And so welcome him to the conversation as well. It's hard to believe it's been 1.5 years since we've all met and discussed homelessness services within Palm Springs. It's been a crazy 1.5 years, but it's also been a really productive 1.5 years when it comes to homelessness services, especially at the county level. I want to, at a high level, kind of go over some of the changes that have happened in the county in the last year. We had a 10-year homeless plan. We had developed a position within the executive office for what we call the homeless czar. And what we realized actually is because of the fragmentation within the county, homeless services were spread out over 8 different departments. There was no communication. They were all siloed, not a one-track real vision on homelessness prevention and services. And so a year ago, March, we established the Housing, Homelessness Prevention and Workforce Solutions Department. In just that, in the year that it's been operating, you would be surprised at the increased level of communication, the trajectory that we are on, and the real solutions that we're working on, and especially the drawdown of funds that this department has done through this COVID pandemic. As Mitch said, we as a county are working with LASAR, our continuum of care, which I'm honored to be the chair of, and I also sit on the board of governance. We are going through our strategic planning and developing an action plan with real deliverables and real goals. We're expecting to unveil the initial draft of that action plan in August. We've already gone through numerous strategy sessions and gaps analysis, and so really excited to be unveiling that in August. We have upgraded our homeless management information system, HMIS. We've also coordinated or folded in our CES system, which is our by name list of those high priority housing individuals, to be much more data centered, to be able to pull better data, and more importantly, to be able to track the success and possible failures of the clients we serve. It's also been a lot of conversations already on this call tonight about the resources. And I will point out that even just 3 years ago, the entire county only received for homeless services $9 million from Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. We had general fund allocations of about $1 million. So that was a $10 million pot total. We are looking at this year, because of the federal assistance and state assistance, to be allocating almost close to $300 million between various programs like rental assistance, Project Roomkey, Project Homekey, et cetera. And I'll highlight some of those later as well. But we do know that $12.2 billion in the state budget, as I put in the chat, the county is aggressively looking at how we're going to be able to access those funds, not just for the county level, but how we can leverage those resources for our individual cities as well. On Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors allocated $31 million in emergency solution grant funding. This is an unprecedented amount of money that is spread out about all 5 districts. I'm happy to say that the 4th district did receive the largest portion at $8.5 million. And that's going to current providers like Martha's and CVRM, Jewish Family Services, and other programs that operate for increased outreach, increased housing first, and other programs as well. Just wanted to highlight some of the things on the county's commitment, and I'm going to go through some of this relatively quickly. Most of you know the history of Roy's. I really do want to say one really successful program has been the CVAG CV Housing First program, and more specifically the CV 200 program. The county is heavily invested in this to the tune of about $350,000. For the first time in history, all 9 cities now are contributing $100,000 to that program. A huge shout out also to the Desert Healthcare District. I know Donna Craig is on here representing them for their match program the last 2 years, and then also this year for the $500,000 allocation. CVAG had contracted that program out with Path of Life for the first 2 years. We brought those operations in-house due to capacity challenges of Path of Life in January, and have already seen much success. And I believe Captain Kovaloff would attest to the great working relationship we've got with the Palm Springs Police Department. Many of you know I've been able to secure funds over the last 2 summers for summer cooling centers. We were fortunate enough to be able to operate those in Palm Springs, Cathedral City, and Desert Hot Springs. Unfortunately, due to capacity issues and some funding limitations, we only will be able to operate that in 1 city this year, but luckily it will be Palm Springs. Again, I want to thank the Palm Springs United Methodist Church for stepping up and offering their location, as well as Martha's. Again, Linda, thank you. I threw a ball at her only about 2 weeks ago that because of some capacity funding issues that we have had with CVRM, we were not able to utilize them as a provider. And so Martha's has stepped up and has done an amazing job just in 2 weeks. What's different about this operation this year is that in the past 2 years, we only did overnight operations. The challenge with that is we weren't connecting people to services. To Justin's point, it was really more of an enabling environment and not really using a housing first model and getting people connected to housing and services. We will be operating at 24 hours this year, and Martha's has an stellar record as far as case management goes, as far as linkage to services, and of course, we'll be partnering with other organizations like Jewish Family Services, CVAG, as well as the county as well. The next section is just, you can see is just some regional funding that we do that has an impact on Palm Springs. Luckily, a lot of these organizations are receiving increased funding. So we're, again, working in a coordinated and collaborative way to address the issue on the providers. And then just some of the housing opportunities we have with our voucher program and general fund increased assistance with the county. Really quickly, behavioral health, and Marcus will correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but this is the latest data I got from him a couple months ago. We have seen real success, and I applaud the city of Palm Springs for the effort that they did and the collaboration and contracting with our county behavioral health department for outreach teams that work alongside police department in Palm Springs. But overall, what we realized as a behavioral health department in county is that we really wanted to take a more regional approach and a more comprehensive approach, because we know that homelessness doesn't know city boundaries. But more importantly, to Justin's point as well, is just the comorbidities that our homeless individuals have between mental health issues and substance use issues. And our behavioral health department is a leader in the country on addressing both of these. But you can see here some of the increase in positions that we'll be doing, with 7 new positions in recruitment, again, really focusing on some licensed clinical therapists, increasing our community behavioral assessment teams, and then continuing the partnerships with our individual cities as well. Jay has already given a really good overview of the project Homekey. I will tell you, as one who had that baby of the Ivy Palms project, it was disheartening that the court didn't allow us to go through with that. We had an incredible plan worked out for that. Again, Jay already pointed out the contributions that the county has made to the 3 housing developments, and will continue to work with the city on future developments. You can see that the county is committed $12.9 million in voucher commitments for these projects, as well as Project Homekey. He talked about it, when I did this slide literally a week and a half ago. No Place Like Home allocation was only to the city of Cathedral City, but we do know that Vista Sunrise 2, as well as the Aloe project, have received those, and of course the allocation of tax credits from the state to the Monarch project. I want to say that by October of this year, we will have 800 units in production in the county of affordable housing. That's unheard of in the last few years. And about 60% of those, don't tell any other supervisory district, are in the Coachella Valley. So our housing authority, under the leadership of Mike Walsh, has done an absolutely amazing job at this. And then finally, too, the county has been working for the last 3 years with a nonprofit in the area called Lift to Rise on what's called the Capital Connect campaign. And this is a public-private partnership to really look at how we move the production of affordable housing forward. So there's a goal of 10,000 new units within the Valley in 10 years. We have made huge strides. This is looked at a national model. There's been national foundations that have not only funded this work, but that are looking at it as a national model. The governor's office is extremely intrigued, and we actually have within HCD budget, I believe a $25 million pot of money that we will hopefully be able to tap for a catalyst fund. Basically, it's kind of an RDA, or redevelopment agency 2.0. We've identified a pipeline of projects, so we know where certain affordable housing developments are in that pipeline, whether they're ready to break ground, what other kind of technical assistance they need, what other kind of financial assistance they need, so that we can apply not only technical assistance, but again, funding resources through that catalyst fund as well. This is just a basic COVID response. I'm not going to go really heavily through this. I will point out, though, that the Riverside County was one of the first counties in the state to do a rental assistance program, $33 million. At that point, we believed we were the largest per capita in the state to administer it at that time. You can see we had served 2,600, a little over 300 of those in Palm Springs. Believe it or not, Palm Springs rental assistance was the biggest in the Coachella Valley. As Jace mentioned, we got a new round of $57 million, $60 million to the state. We are actually will be administering those $60 million as a county, so that will come down to the county. We have a really, really good operational system set up through what's called United Lift. It's a partnership, again, between Lift to Rise and United Way of the Inland Empire, that we're getting the money out the door faster than most communities throughout the nation with rental assistance. With that, we mentioned Project Homekey, and I'll go over something else, but I really kind of wanted to highlight, because while we still see people on the street, I really want to emphasize that not only the county, but in partnership with the city and all of our service providers, we are actually getting people off the street. And if some good stuff did come out of COVID, believe it or not, just the resources, but our county, again, and under the leadership of Carrie Harmon out of the new department, we implemented the Project Homekey even before the governor announced it. And this, again, was a program, but we were worried about it was more from a public health standpoint, is we were worried about congregate encampment settings or individuals on the street. And we didn't want them to get sick or spread it throughout the homelessness community. Our service providers within our congregate settings, our shelters, we worked as a county immediately to make sure PPPs were involved. When we finally started testing, that was done. And so luckily in Riverside County, very, 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 very little outbreaks within our congregate settings. So what we did is basically created a program that for seniors 65 and older, pregnant women, and of course those with severe medical needs that would be more susceptible to the virus. We provided them a hotel room. We contracted with many hotels, mostly primarily in Palm Springs, Indio, and a couple in Desert Hot Springs. 3 meals a day were provided. More importantly, though, what we wanted to do again was not create an enabling environment, but have ongoing case management, have a housing exit plan, and we were really, really proud about the results. The success of this program is just absolutely amazing, and we're looking at a county as the funding may run out and program winds down is how we replicate this on a little smaller scale, but again, do that over. As you can see, as of a couple of weeks ago, the county has placed over 1,000 individuals in hotels, 415 of those permanently housed. To have almost a 50% rate on a short program like this is almost unheard of. You can see in the Coachella Valley, 164 permanently housed, and in Palm Springs alone, 87 permanently housed as well. kind of going to skip this. This was really more for some of the issues we had around the project room key. What we did realize as a county is that, you know, I say rushed into it, and that's true because we worried about the public health crisis. But what we didn't do is balance the, losing my train of thought here, but our locations, so that where we were housing the hotels, it basically in conjunction too close to well in the desert. So you were getting a concentration of homelessness. And then you had individuals coming in that weren't necessarily homeless, but were drug dealers and then creating more crime and stuff like that. So again, we worked with the city on some original security issues, but then more so within the last 4 to 5 months, have closed a couple of the hotels within the city to really decrease that, intensive issue as well. And so I'm going to end here on kind of where we go as the path forward. As I said, we really should be proud as a city and as a county on how we've moved and the commitment. But what's more exciting is what's coming and how we're going to work collaboratively together for even more solutions. So again, the amount of state money that's coming down, we anticipate more federal money. Craig mentioned just the change in attitude in the housing urban development is absolutely amazing. So we're really excited about the potential for some more federal programs. Again, the continued support of regional funding, programming, and collaboration. To Justin's point, you know, we'll be doing regular calls with our service providers, specifically addressing the issues of Palm Springs, but more importantly as well, the issues around the Coachella Valley and the county as a whole. Again, utilizing the county services and expansion of those. We will get a second round of Project Homekey. Our housing authority is already on top of that, identifying certain properties that we'll be able to utilize those programs for. And then, you know, again, just keeping up the communication and partnership. And I just keep harping on this is, you know, for too long, and, you know, God bless people, and I hate to sound cold on this, and we've really addressed homelessness as just provide them food or provide them clothing, but we're not helping homeless individuals. To Justin's point, these are human beings that we really need to address the root causes of their problems, not create an enabling environment, but providing the resources that they can survive, but more importantly, working with them and getting them into services and connection to permanent housing. And we're showing that that is a successful model within Riverside County. I'll end with, it's been referenced a couple of times, and this has been my dream for 4 years since I've been with the supervisor's office, is we have known for, and Jenny's on the call, and, you know, she started with Lupe Ramos Watson 13 years ago through the CVAG Homeless Committee, the whole issue of a West Side, at that time, shelter. But even then they had a vision to have more wraparound services, case management, navigation center. Unfortunately, we all know the issues that Roy's had, but we really do have the opportunity now, and this is my cause celeb of anything else over the next year or half, 2 years, to really build the state-of-the-art navigation campus in the city of Palm Springs that provides not only an element of shelter beds, but also transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, on-site services for behavioral health, linkages to Medi-Cal, a clinic on site, workforce development, just a whole array of services that really treat this as a holistic approach and really provides an area where people can actually move up the ladder into permanent supportive housing and hopefully on their own through jobs and actually within market rate housing. At this point, we are looking at a couple sites. I want to give a shout out to Jenny Fote as well, who has approached me on a possible location. I've been working with Tim Ellis, many of you are aware of, on another location. But again, we know a campus model works. It works in other organizations. And so what our delay has been so far up to this point is, while in theory, I believe the county is going to be able to commit capital money to this, which is unheard of in homeless funding. But I can't guarantee that until we determine what our American Recovery Plan Act money is going to be. I'm confident it's going to happen, but for me to actually pull a trigger, I can't do that until the Board of Supervisors approves that. But working very close with county departments, we'll continue and working with the 2 sites on a site development plan, how we're going to be able to fund not only the capital needs of those 2 sites, but more importantly, and I say 2 sites, but we'll only do 1, but I want to have options on the table for us to look at. and then look at the funding sources of that. And then as Jay mentioned too, is how are we going to leverage not only city money through HAP money, but possible other state funding and other resources to make sure that we have ongoing resources for service delivery as well. I know that's a lot. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything on my notes, but you know, the only thing I will end on is, especially on the navigation piece and other services, is we really are working collaboratively with the city of Palm Springs. Again, the county providing possible capital funding sources, but again, voucher support with permanent supportive housing and transitional use. Again, CVAG and all of our 9 cities and unincorporated county. The business community, which I believe we really have not tapped into, have been absolutely amazing. I've had great conversations with Nona Watson and Michael Vaughn. As I said, Tim Ellis of Aftab Data. I'm going to go on and on about the list. The business community is engaged in this. And more importantly, too, is we've had some private people step up about possible private philanthropy. And we know that we have a very philanthropic valley here, and we've really never tapped into that for homeless services. And so looking at how we can utilize not only our housing authorities, nonprofit arm, but possibly the Desert Healthcare District Foundation in leveraging some of these private dollars. So with that, I know that was a lot in a little bit of time, and Madam Mayor, I appreciate the indulgence of your time.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you to all county staff for this incredible work. I completely agree with your assessment that there has been some really amazing work and outcomes that you've documented just over the last year, and a much larger investment by the county into homelessness in our region and in Palm Springs. And we're so proud of Greg Rodriguez being a Palm Springs resident who really, I know there's a whole team at the county, but is often a one-man show securing funding to get overnight cooling shelters, for example. That really is attributable to Greg and everyone he works with. So thank you to Greg and Supervisor Perez for all of their work. I saw that Linda asked, are there plans for childcare on the proposed campus? And Greg answered, yes, you beat me to it. Someone asked how many homeless people will be actually taken off the streets. More than 50% of them have mental, drug, or alcohol problems. We didn't say this, but all of the permanent supportive housing that Jay went over, the programs that Greg went over, all include supportive services. So, in case management, medical and behavioral health services, often on site. So that is something that's included in most programs. And everyone said great presentation. So thank you, Greg, for all of that detailed information for our community. Next, we have, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on unless we see any other questions. I know Greg will answer them in the chat. So next we have service provider updates. So we have a list of the service providers on the agenda if you're looking at it, so we can go through that list. If you're a service provider, you can also raise your hand if you'd like to give an update, and I can call on you. So Linda, would you like to give an update for Martha's?
Yes. What a 10 days this has been. And thank you, Greg, for making us available. I said it was going to be done, and it will be done. We had hoped to have it open on the 5th, but the showers and bathrooms will be available and up on the 6th. So that's what I held off all day hoping that those parts would come in, because most of the showers, our showers actually had to be built for us because they'd all been removed from the valley because there weren't any events going on. So they weren't going to make money with them. So they sent them off to other areas. So it just allows us one more day with our staff to train. So we're very encouraged that we're going to bring a product to the homeless individuals who need it so desperately, with intense case management and wraparound services as well. We will be talking to other agencies and reaching out to them to try to get collaboration involved and take it a step further than what I read, in addition to what I read, is requested. So my hope is that we get HMIS real quick. Greg put that that bug in somebody's ear, that we need HMIS as quickly as we can get it. And I'm sure everybody's wondering what my board had to say about the boxing center. So they put together a committee for me to meet with the city. And I have my marching orders and it looks positive. But we have this pesky thing, which is the 4th of July holiday, what seems to be cutting into everything. So it's just a matter of timing. So as soon as we can get an appointment with Jay and Justin and my staff that works, which I'm hoping is very close after the 5th, we're on it. And we tend to work at warp speed. But again, Martha's, you know, historically, we're planners because we want to bring forward a product that people can be proud of and that's effective for those that we serve. So that's what's going on. A lot's going on. A lot of backbreaking work, a lot of planning again, but we're going to make it happen. And I want to thank the city for their support and the providers that are on the line. Of course, we'll be reaching out to you in every way we know and hope to hear from you. But I know a lot of people will, and I say this with love, will be disappearing for the holiday weekend. And so we're hoping that we make contact and appointments right after the holiday.
Thank you, Linda, your entire team at Martha's for truly stepping up and providing and staffing the overnight cooling shelter for the county and also the boxing club for the city. We very much appreciate your expertise and work and all of the intensive services that an organization like Martha's brings to your clients. So thank you. I see other service providers on the line. So if you'd like to give an update, please raise your hand. You can do that on the Zoom feature, or you can go old school and wave your hand and I'll recognize you to give updates. So on the agenda, I have Jewish Family Services, Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, Well in the Desert, CBAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, Desert Healthcare District, and then at the end, we'll have a Palm Springs Police Department update. So would any of those providers or others like to give an update at this time?
I can start for Jewish Family Service, but I'd like to differentiate. We've got both Jewish Family Service of San Diego and Jewish Family Service of the Desert. So I'd like to suggest, if Craig's willing, that Craig go first for Jewish Family Service of the
Actually, Mike, I appreciate that. I believe the mayor was asking for your update and not mine. See, we all get confused down here, Mike.
We're lucky we have two. So it just says one on the agenda. So we will change that to accurately describe both of you. So either of you or both are open to, you're able to give an update right now. So go ahead, Mike, if you'd like to go forward.
Sure. With that said, I'd like to hand it off to Becky. Becky is going to update everyone on the progress of our work.
Hi, everybody. As far as an update in the city of Palm Springs and actually to the Coachella Valley, Jewish Family Services San Diego, we have 99 permanent supportive housing units. 36 of those are actually located in Palm Springs. And in addition to that, our outreach access center, we actually had to close at the beginning of COVID, and we are very happy that last week, I think it was last Monday, right, Mike? We reopened our outreach services, and we actually have a new suite downstairs where our offices. We're located right across the street from the Palm Springs High School, the field. Prior to when COVID started, our office just was too small to have homeless clients coming in. We couldn't do it safely. So now we are back open, and we are open 3 days a week for those that are on the street to come in and get services and access with my staff, so we can do assessments and link them to the housing services that they need. And I don't know if Erica's online, if she has something she wants to update, or if Mike wants to add anything else.
Erica?
No updates.
In that case, I'll add that we have been awarded ESG CV1 and CV2 funding to do some street outreach services. So we will be rolling that out very, very soon. We're very excited about that. That's all.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the updates and all of your excellent work. We appreciate it. for all of our residents. Craig, would you like to do your update now?
Sure, I'm happy to. I believe a lot of you know that Jewish Family Service of the Desert does not offer housing services. Our services are primarily geared to preventing homelessness from occurring in the first place. But we are currently offering both in-person and telecare counseling. We accept all major insurances for those persons without insurance. We work on a sliding cash scale. For someone without insurance or a notable income, we have scholarships available. Bottom line, if someone wants to see a JFS counselor, we're going to make it possible for them regardless of their ability to pay. Our case management program has been intact throughout the pandemic, thankfully. We're able to convert to telecare. And so we're currently still offering connections to available benefits, CalFresh, Section 8 housing vouchers, Medi-Cal, et cetera. But we continue to be one of the only agencies of offering emergency financial assistance for necessities such as overdue rent, overdue utilities, food, and medications. And certainly want to thank Jay and the City of Palm Springs for allowing us to utilize some CDBG CB funding for residents in the Valley for those efforts. Jay, thank you very much. It's very meaningful support every year. So our case managers, as you can imagine, the volume has increased dramatically, nearly doubled over the last 12 months. We are currently offering our family assistance program, which is for households affected by COVID. Those households of 3 or more people are then given an account of at least $500 to utilize for those necessities, and they can use those monies until those monies are gone. A family of 3 gets an account of $500. Families of 4 to 5 are an afforded account of $750, and 6 or greater are afforded an account of $1,000. Again, they can use those monies for those necessities. And what we're seeing is that, for instance, month number 1, monies are used for food. Month number 2, monies are used for an electric bill. Month number 3, monies are used for a gas bill. So it really is providing that long-term support we are hoping for. And the families are able to direct their own support. And so we're believing and really hearing from the families that their ability to direct their support contributes to the household dignity. And so we really think we hit on something here in allowing them to, to have this at their disposal, if you will, this cash of support funding. And then lastly, our community outreach program, which prior to COVID was creating the interactive Let's Do Lunch programs at several locations throughout the desert. We have converted that program to well-checked phone calls, to food deliveries, so that our isolated seniors who were isolating at first for public safety reasons, some are still isolating for public safety reasons, but they need the interaction and they need the support. And so we're able to offer that primarily with staff, but also volunteer support. So again, our programs and services are not meant necessarily to service the homeless community directly, but to prevent homelessness from happening in the first place. Now, that does not mean that we have no homeless clients. We absolutely have homeless clients. We are often, though, referring, for instance, to our friends across the parking lot in JFS San Diego. Now they have the support program. When homeless individuals call on us, we have many folk here to which to refer. And then if there are, for instance, wanting to get counseling, we're connecting them to a therapist to get counseling. And we do look forward to assisting Martha's and really any of the other organizations here in battling the homelessness issue. All the points here today were so very well made. Each individual is their own case, a very dynamic and special case. And so I'm looking forward to working with you to create some solutions, knowing that they're going to be tailored. They're going to need to be tailored and individualized. It is a mountainous work that we have ahead of us. But I appreciate the fact that we're all band together. We're in this together. And I really believe and feel that. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Craig, to you and your whole team of JFS of the Desert for all the safety net services that you provide. That's incredibly important as we talk about homelessness and affordable housing and prevention. So we know that work is really important too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, I saw Donna Craig here earlier. I wanted to recognize Desert Healthcare District support of our work and really so many other agencies support here in the desert. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you. Donna, with that, would you like to give a Desert Healthcare District update?
Actually, Greg kind of covered it all in the $500,000 MOU that we have with CVAG. I do see that Director Carol Rogers is on, and I know she works very closely with Cal State and the street medicine program. So I don't know if she wanted to maybe add something about that, what she's doing through that.
Thank you. Welcome, Director Rogers. Would you like to give an update? We'll give her time if she would like to. Other providers, would you like to give an update at this time? Marcus, I see you. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the welcome and thank you to you and council and city staff. Marcus Cannon, I'm an administrator with RUHS Behavioral Health. That's the county integrated health system. Greg covered most of the things that I would want to share and certainly shared them more eloquently than I could. But I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to thank the city for the support and the partnership on 2 of those affordable housing projects that Mr. Varada mentioned, Aloe Palm Canyon and Vista Sunrise 2. Behavioral health's involvement for those 2 projects is we help co-write the applications. That source of funding, No Place Like Home, can only be applied to by counties and their behavioral health departments. And so between the 2 projects, it's $11.8 million and just, scores of new units coming online, 54 of which are reserved just for the homeless. And then our department commits to provide at no cost to the developer or the residents for a period of 20 years on-site supportive services, so that there's a behavioral health staff on-site to help people with their needs, whether that's mental health or substance use. So we know that that's still a little ways off before those projects will be fully finished, but we're excited about the future and excited to support them. And grateful for the city's partnership in that. Like Greg said, we continue to operate street outreach teams throughout the valley. We've got about 7 teams across the valley currently, but we have a new team that I wanted to share real briefly. It'll be called a mobile crisis management team, designed to reach out to law enforcement, hospitals, just crisis in the community, mental health crisis. It's a 4-person multidisciplinary team of a clinical therapist, a substance use counselor, a behavioral health specialist, and a peer specialist, who's someone who themselves has a lived experience of being homeless and or battling mental illness and recovery. And so they can share that story at the street level in a different and more, struggling for the right word, but sort of a more authentic way to say, I don't just have education about mental health, but I've literally been in your shoes. I've literally walked this journey. Come kind of take my hand, walk this journey with me. So that team, we have all the staff members for that team in background right now, getting ready to onboard. So they're not active today, but we hope in the next 6 to 8 weeks that they will be active there in the western end of the Coachella Valley. So we're excited about that. And then if I may, someone mentioned, sort of who are the real faces that this houses or who really gets off the streets. One of our outreach teams recently got a gentleman off the streets of Palm Springs with collaboration and assistance from the CVAG team. We work regularly with Jewish Family Services and Martha's. And this was a man, kind of a sadly stereotypical story. He and his partner had lived in Palm Springs for a long time. A partner passed away a number of years ago, and that resulted in an income loss, as well as the grieving period of losing his partner. And he ended up on the streets. And we met him last year, and staff just sent me a beautiful photo of him moving in today. He's got a beaming smile and his keys, and he's a man of a certain age. Not that we would want anybody on the streets, but certainly as we get older, it seems only that much more cruel and unjust to be on the streets. We've been able to connect him with one of the premier long-term healthcare institutions there of Palm Springs to meet some of his specialty needs that he wasn't getting care for. So just really, really happy, really proud to share with you that, through the work, that collaborative work that we do, supported by your police department and all these nonprofits, that, there are real names and faces getting off the streets. So grateful for the partnership and thanks for all your time.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I briefly touched on Roy's and really did the negative stuff on Roy's, but last September we actually opened 96, I believe, Marcus. Board
92.
92. I always get that 90 number wrong, but an augmented board and care facility that is a key component to the throughput of our mental health services. And and again, this is a huge applause to Marcus and Dr. Chang, who've been real advocates for this project. So again, it's not a place where people can just drop in or that somebody can refer homeless people to. It's a step within the mental health process that helps free up some of our urgent care centers and our 5150 beds and other steps within our mental health system. So it was a great utilization of that building. So Marcus, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I wanted to make sure people on the call that have known Roy's forever, that it's actually been put to amazing use by the county. So.
Happy to answer questions if there are, but to Greg's point, it's 92 beds. It's not a direct walk-in facility. It's meant as step down from hospital or more intensive care, but it has a net positive effect on healthcare in the valley and on homelessness in the valley. Greg, I think, used the analogy of a ladder, or if you picture a river, like if there's a log jam anywhere in the river, it backs things up above that. So by being able to have this level of care, it helps our mental health urgent cares have more space, our crisis residential treatments places have more space. It sort of helps that flow all through the system of mental health care. And I should add that our mental health urgent care, which is in Palm Springs on 111, I always forget the cross street. It's as you leave town, there's like a Jack in the Box there. Our mental health urgent care consistently has available beds. So if you know somebody that's in mental health crisis, that site is there and it is 24 hours a day. I see a question from Linda Evans in the chat about a racket club. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. And the 4 Paws Shopping Center, yeah. The census fluctuates, Linda, but right now we're in the 70s. So we do have some capacity at the moment.
Thank you so much, Marcus, for your team's work and your dedication to Palm Springs. Really appreciate it. I know when we had staffed up really quickly a few years ago, extreme weather shelter at Demuth, Marcus was there in person. I think you brought donuts. So you're really committed to our residents, and thank you for your expertise for behavioral and mental health too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Really appreciate you being here. Other updates from service providers. We had CVRM, Well in the Desert on the list, but I don't think I see any hands raised from any other service providers. Perfect. So then we will go to the Palm Springs Police Department for an update, please.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. A lot of new faces, and I'm happy to see that this meeting is very well attended. I have an outstanding team, and just to give you a little bit of background on the PD's homeless outreach. We started off with one officer, Baron Lane, doing this about 10 years ago. And then we had to force people into that assignment because nobody wanted to work directly with the homeless. Here we are now, I have 3 officers and a community service officer. I have Sarah, Andrew, Stephanie, and Juan, who are all attend this meeting, and they all actually put in for this position and were interviewed because we had so many candidates that want to do this job now. So we have an outstanding team, and they're very passionate about what they do. They are very busy. And as the police department, we're stuck in the middle of a lot of this. We, like our city manager said, there's a whole other side of this issue where we receive the complaints from citizens, from landowners, from businesses, all sorts of people regarding homeless issues. Whether it's illegal or not, we have to educate a lot of people on the issues with the Boise decision and what is illegal and what is not illegal. But that being said, being homeless does not give you a hall pass for violating laws. So we have this balance, and we know as a team that we're not going to enforce our way out of homelessness. So our officers, the sergeant who's not here and lieutenant, they're both off right now. We have this balance of work to do with the compassion of caring for these individuals and getting them into services, and then the compassion of dealing with our residents, businesses, and visitors and addressing these issues. So it's a delicate situation all the time. I will be frank with you. It is very bad right now. There are homeless issues spread out across the city. Historically, we've had certain areas where we've experienced this. I am seeing more and more issues in greater areas. What is the cause for this? That is a whole nother meeting that would last a few hours, and I'm not here to do that, but we are experiencing a lot of issues, and we're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, 7 days a week. I will say this, Greg brought it up. Our relationship with Tom Cox at CVAG, his overall responsiveness, communication, and ability to get people the housing they need over the last few months has been remarkable and something that I have not seen in my career here. So I commend the county on what they're doing at the various locations because it has been outstanding. But we are here to support the service providers and all of those because we serve everybody as a police department. So we're here to answer questions if you have any. If you want to hit me up offline, I can do that too, because we get a lot of questions that people think that it's illegal to sleep in a car, illegal to sleep in certain locations, private property versus public property. You know, we have to educate people on the rules of engagement, on how we do things. And first and foremost, we as a team of police department here, we offer services. We try to get them into housing because being homeless is not a crime. And we want to get that solution because it's been said many times here by the experts in this Zoom meeting that getting them into homes is the solution, not putting a Band-Aid on it and not getting them anything else. Getting them to homes gets them out of everybody's issues and gets them what they need. So if there's any questions for me or my staff, we're more than happy to answer them. I just really like to see this type of involvement. I'm really happy to see that because we are all passionate about this, and I'm glad to see that you all are here to learn about this. So thank you.
Thank you, Captain, to you and all your officers and the entire team there. I know we do really great work in not criminalizing people, but making sure that people are following the law and also getting into services and working with providers. So really thank you for your leadership. Are there any, I don't see any questions in the chat. Are there any questions for PSPD from hands? If not, we will be here if you want to put those in the chat and we will try to answer them for you. And so next, and Greg, you didn't do a full update for CVAG. Do you mind just giving a really quick brief explanation for the CVAG programs since we don't have Tom Cox here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe Anise is on the line who works with Tom. But as I said, we brought operations in-house in January. And a lot of that is because we weren't seeing the performance level that we really wanted to see. And as a lot of people know, really the intent of CVAG was to really address the chronic homeless problem. And we got that from, many of you remember Barbara Poppy when she presented at the convention center, originally commissioned by the Desert Healthcare District. And that was really where she said we needed to focus on was on the chronically homeless. Now, we have prevention methods that other organizations do, outreach, et cetera. So when we brought those operations in-house at CVAG in January, we really made it clear. And Tom Kirk, the CEO of CVAG, did a roadshow, dog and pony show to all cities throughout the valley over the spring, but really emphasizing that what we created was what we call the CV 200. It started at CV 100, but then increased to 200. So these are our what we call frequent flyers or high utilizers. So to Captain Kovalev's point, it's ones that are utilizing public safety resources. Linda knows too from Desert Care Network, those that are utilizing a high percentage of our emergency rooms, and really addressing how because those are the most costly to us as a society, and tend to be the ones that are the hardest to get into services and placement. So Tom and his team, and Captain's right, Tom is absolutely an amazing individual. CVAG was very, very lucky to get a hold of him when he left CVRM, but it had really, again, focused on, it's a housing first model. So we operate about 24 what we call crisis stabilization units. So we can literally bring someone off the street. We get a lot of referrals from our police departments throughout the valley, some from our discharges from the hospitals, get them into a unit. And again, provide, which Denise is on the call and does amazing work at case management, linking them to services just like Medi-Cal. Many of these individuals don't even have an ID, so that you can't get a lease on an apartment, you can't get benefits. And so, working with them through DMV, getting them connected to, most of them qualify for Social Security disability income. And so again, really that intense case management. We work very closely with Marcus and his team on behavioral health aspects. We've been able to really develop a great partnership with the county on some Project Room Key units that we can utilize that help augment the units that we rent privately. And it's been quite successful. We've set a goal to permanently house 90 individuals over the calendar year. Just in the first 2 quarters, we are up to almost 50, which is absolutely incredible. Now, some of that's a little low hanging fruit because, as many providers on this call know, the more intense cases take longer to do. But just the pure focus on this has really been successful. And again, our previous partner or our contractor wasn't developing the relationship with individuals like the captain or the police department. And that's not just Palm Springs, but that was the other cities as well that have their own departments, as well as our county sheriff's department too. So it really is an amazing progress, or has made amazing progress, and again is looked at in that as a state model, in the collaboration, and the county model as a collaboration between cities, healthcare districts, the county, on really how we do collaborative approaches to really target this problem.
Thank you so much, Greg. I didn't want to skip over that work because it is really important, and we are housing people, as a region. And so often our residents say, well, we don't see a shelter. We don't think you're doing anything on homelessness. And just to clarify that the county and the city council of Palm Springs has really moved away from that shelter model, because we saw that Roy's had an extremely low success rate in getting people into permanent housing and getting them permanently off the streets. Whereas the housing first models that we're using and that other providers are using on this call, which you've heard about, actually have extremely high levels of success to keep people permanently housed and get them services. So though you might not see one major place, it is happening throughout the community, like you've heard by all of these service providers.
And if I could just highlight what Captain Kovalev said too, is that we are seeing an increase. And, again, he's right. If we can have an 8-hour conversation on the root causes of that. I will say, though, with that being said, is the county, through our strategic planning, not only through continuing care to border governance, but through our departments, not only the housing, homeless prevention and workforce solutions, but DPSS, Office on Aging, looking at how we're doing more preventative measures to make sure that people aren't falling into homelessness. We've all talked about it on this call. The lack of affordable housing is one of the greatest concerns. And I applaud Palm Springs for, again, I think Jay or Justin mentioned the first projects in over a decade, but they're not the only 3 that are going to happen. And I know there's the commitment from the city and again, the commitment from the county. So.
Thank you, Greg. And we do, get a lot of questions about why we allocated so much of the $10 million to permanent housing. And that's because for years we hired a consultant to tell us what the problem was in our system. And it was that there isn't enough permanent housing to house people. So you can go to a shelter or you can go to transitional housing, but then there's no home for you at the end of that chain. And we heard that from service providers. And so that's why it's a difficult decision, because we know we need Band-Aids. We know we need a humanitarian response right now, but we also know homelessness is increasing across the country and the state, especially because of the pandemic, and we need hope to build permanent homes also for people, along with the outreach, along with the services, along with the transitional housing that we are also funding. So thank you to all for your work. So we are at 7, but I want to get to public comment. So if you do have public comment, you could write it in the chat here that you have public comment, and I will call on you. You can raise your hand on the Zoom feature, or you can raise your hand old school and in real life and go like this. So Jenny Weissman has a public comment. So you'll have, we do it informally, but we are pressed for time. So you'll have 2 minutes to give your public comment.
Thank you. And I'm sitting in the dark here. My camera's not working very well, so I would like to go off camera for this. And
you don't need a camera to give public comment.
Good, thank you. I want to read my notes. So good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Garner, city staff, county staff, and all the guests. As many of you know, I've been developing New Harmony Habitat, a sanctuary for senior people and pets, for the past 2 years. I am the founder and executive director of the Pet Ministry PS, which has found over 350 homes for the pets here. So I identified 2 pressing needs during that time: homes for seniors with pets and homes for senior pets. And everybody on this call, many of you on this call, have been very supportive of me during this time. The project went on hold and got stalled in 2020, as many things were due to the pandemic, but we are now moving forward. And as I heard on the call that was referenced for Lift to Rise last month, the cost of building a 2-bedroom affordable unit in Riverside County with conventional construction is now $540,000. Mayor Holstridge, Council members Coors and Woods and Jay Varada toured the factory with the innovative and revolutionary materials that we want to build from, which allows us to build at half that cost and in half the time of conventional construction. And it's also fire resistant, which is so important for the desert. There has not been a senior affordable housing built in over 20 years, even though we referenced 10 years for affordable housing, senior housing has not happened. And as many of you know, the waiting lists in surrounding communities are closed. And when they were open, they were 3 to 5 year waiting lists. And I have had seniors tell me that they would rather live in their car with their pets because they can't afford the rents, let alone the pet deposits, of which we're all going to be waiving in New Harmony Habitat. So we have revolutionized a way to revolutionize building affordable housing with lower costs and less time. With the land, with the funding, I could really be open in 2022, well ahead of the other projects. So I guess my question is what can the city of Palm Springs and the county of Riverside do to help projects like mine with possible land, with, we're talking about philanthropy funding. I am a nonprofit, I'm looking for donors, and also to expedite the time, for permits and lowering the cost of permits. So that's what I'm looking for, is a way to partner with the city and the county to be able to really build something here for seniors. And again, what that's doing is preventing more homeless seniors, which is a very vulnerable population. It was before the pandemic, it's even more so now. So I appreciate all the support I've gotten so far. It's been really tremendous, and we are ready to move forward. I'm just looking to see how we can work together to make that happen. And I really appreciate being able to be on this call and make these comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Are there other public comments at this time? I don't see anyone commenting that in the chat, and I do not see any hands raised on Zoom or any hands raised in real life. So with that, that will be the end of public comment. To Jenny's question, we can't answer a public comment generally because of the Brown Act, but unless it's under the scope of the agenda, which I think that it is, City Manager, in terms of just saying generally the City Council and City of Palm Springs has put out available land, as you know, for affordable housing projects. That's how we've spurred the development of affordable housing in the city of Palm Springs. So that's how we got a number of these projects. And I know you know that we've done that for other land as well. So we're continuing to focus on that and work on it. So not just, we know that what's in the pipeline now isn't enough, and we really want to continue to think through, you know, we have to build probably 2,500 units in the next RENA cycle. So how are we going to get there? That's going to take a lot more development and creative thinking. So with that, we will go to council member and staff comments. So I'll go to council member Garner. Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Hey everyone, I don't have anything other than to say appreciate all of you for being here, all of the service providers, and giving your updates. And hopefully we can get some more residents in attendance the next time we host this. So I know that there are a lot of residents who aren't here that I know we've received comments from in the past. So we'll have to check in on those folks and see if they'd like to participate. So if you are a resident and you're here and you know there was someone else that didn't make it, you know, please give them an update about what we talked about here. And if they need more information, they can always reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just echo that. Thank you to everyone for participating. We know this might not be the best way you want to spend Wednesday night at 7 p.m. You might be, you know, hungry for dinner, but we really appreciate you being here tonight to really learn about what the services are that are being provided and to discuss some of these issues. You don't need to wait until a homelessness task force meeting to discuss those issues with us. So feel free to contact Jay or Justin if you have questions about city projects or homelessness in Palm Springs. I know Captain Kovalev and the Palm Springs Police Department is extremely responsive when neighbors or neighborhoods have concerns that they need addressed. And we are all here to serve our community and to take care of our homeless neighbors and all of our residents. So we know this is an ongoing, you know, increasing issue because of so many of the crises we face, and we are all doing our part to do everything we can to take care of each other. So with that, I see that Jay Varada shared his contact information, so his email address and phone number. Thank you, Jay. So feel free to reach out to us anytime if you have questions or comments. One thing, you know, we've discussed sort of the purpose of this meeting and the need for this meeting, if it needs to be a quarterly update. It used to be, I know Jenny, former council member Jenny Fote is here, and she led it, this task force. We had subcommittees to work on different issues, and that kind of just changed to a reporting body to share with the community some of this work. Some of those reports happen at CVAG, and I know Justin and Jay have collected the service providers in Palm Springs to all be on the same page about services in Palm Springs. So just to say, you know, just because we didn't have this meeting for over a year because of the pandemic doesn't mean that this work wasn't going on, and we continue to update the community. We work on homelessness probably every day, most of us. And so that work is still ongoing. So if you have feedback about how this meeting could be better and really, you know, answer the community's questions, which we see on social media every day, it's disappointing some of the people on social media are not here to participate and ask questions, since we really are here to answer any and all questions from the community. So with that, please provide us your feedback, and we will be in touch about holding this meeting more regularly if it's helpful for the community. So thank you all. With that, we will adjourn at 7:10 p.m. Thank you and have a fantastic night.